Thank you. I just want to first start off by saying thank you to CDA and CDPHE for everything you do for the hemp program and all the work that you've done with the stakeholders over the last few years, especially last legislative session. So thank you. What you do for us is very important. I just have a few quick, one comment and a few questions. I just am now seeing the documentation that was attached to today's meeting agenda, and I'm kind of surprised some of the stuff that is left over from the policy statement that should go away, but I know that we're going to have more time to discuss rules and regulations down the road, so I'm excited about that part. I just want to make sure that we're clear that some of the additional requirements, such as a CBD content labeling part, is not necessarily a state law currently, as you had a reference state or federal labeling requirements.
Because it's an ingredient within that product, ingredients need to be disclosed, so it is in a requirement of state law that all ingredients are listed. So
okay, gotcha. So would that be also applicable to THCV, CBDV, CBN, CBG?
Yes.
Okay, so that goes back to just another question really quick on the application that I just saw today. With the changes, it says industrial hemp, CBD. Would it not be more viable to put hemp products, since that is our definition? And
I think what we could do is within that labeling, so the statement of all ingredients need to be disclosed, actual statements in state law. Because we have the hemp industry and the CBD and the different products of the hemp plant, we can look at ways to satisfy that labeling requirement, and we can try to be nimble in that, so it doesn't become, a sheet a foot long that you pull off the label. We can think of different ways to satisfy that requirement.
Gotcha. And I know that there's going to be more discussions going on. I just wanted to reference
I thought
that.
It was today and we're done.
No, we're not done. Far from it. But just seeing that for the first time, I do want to ask a quick question for clarity, because we did talk about adulteration. It was mentioned that anything over 0.3 THC% on a final product would be considered an adulterated ingredient or a product. Under the hemp foods bill, we fixed hemp from being an adulterated product to food additive or herb. But if a finished product does have something like high levels of pesticide or heavy metals, which are over the state applicable or allowance, would those be considered adulterated ingredients?
Yeah, we would handle it just like we do with any food ingredient. Let me clarify. The reason I said above 0.3 THC, we'd consider that adulterated. It's because it's above the standard of identity, which is an industrial hemp product. So I think some of the changes that were made in the bill last year did a good job of marrying those two kind of concepts, that, hey, it's not just hemp or THC we're talking about, it's the other constituents that can find its way into any food commodity.
Yes, thank you. Can I ask Hoban Law a question really quick on something with the federal farm bill that you referenced earlier?
Sure.
Okay, so one of the other amendments that were made by Mitch McConnell recently talks about the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act and the authority for them to enforce it under the farm bill that's being proposed currently. So we all know that FDA takes the position that CBD is illegal. It's even more illegal now than it was before, because it's now an active ingredient in a drug. So if the federal farm bill passes and we have these amendments in here stipulating their allowance to still fully enforce the Drug and Cosmetic Act, is that a Trojan horse that is being thrown into the federal farm bill? How will that impact CBD?
That's a great question. Certainly something that we've been attuned with. I believe, and I'm paraphrasing here, but I believe the language says that nothing herein, meaning the hemp provisions of the farm bill, shall be construed so as to affect the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. Basically it's preserving these issues is the way I see it with respect to, pharma and CBD as an adulterant and all these issues. Certainly I think that there's pros and cons of having any language in the legislation with respect to the FDA. But as I noted earlier, legislation is not perfect. It's not always ideal. It's a function of trying to figure out a way for the industry to move forward in a progressive manner, and knowing that the farm, we all exist in this room underneath the existing farm bill from 2014, which expires, and so we have to handle it some way or another. And so, certainly we're doing all that we can to try to address those things appropriately. I think everyone in this room is well aware that there are ongoing issues with the FDA. I don't think that those are going to be resolved tomorrow, nor do I think that they'll be resolved the day after the Farm Bill is passed.
So just in conclusion, would it be fair to say that just because the Farm Bill passes and this idea of cannabinoids or CBD being a viable hemp seed can be used in animal food, but FDA does not approve the use of animal or hemp seed in animal food, for example, unless we go through that rigorous process. So if the Farm Bill passes, would it be fair to say that FDA will not necessarily automatically flip over to some kind of allowance of us using CBD from industrial hemp?
You know, I think part of that's a little bit speculative, but I would generally agree that, you know, the Farm Bill primarily relates to the USDA's authority over cultivation of industrial hemp. Now, that said, extracts and cannabinoids and a few other qualifiers there are included in the definition of hemp under the Farm Bill. So, you know, in the same way that we see ambiguity and vagueness now under the existing Farm Bill, it may look a little bit different, but I don't think that all of these issues are going to be resolved magically the day after the Farm Bill passes. That said, I do think that passing the Farm Bill and strong hemp legislation, you know, is a step forward for the industry.
I agree. I just want to say that it also could result in bad laws. So I would encourage you as a member of the U.S. Hemp Roundtable and anyone else who's listening that is part of that group to try to get clarity regarding that FDA position and how that will be enforced, or maybe a possible Trojan horse. And I'd also like to thank Senator Don Coram for everything you've done for the hemp industry and being a sponsor of the hemp foods bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Clarify the labeling again, just one more time. The labeling with the cannabinoids on the
So, state law requires all ingredients to be labeled. So when Veronica asked her question, I answered affirmatively, it needs to be disclosed. She appropriately said, well, that could be all of these things. So trying to be quick to not get a line of people to answer additional questions or ask additional questions. I think there's a way for us to make sure that statutory requirement of disclosure of ingredients.
That Hoban Law has been gracious to put together for all of us. There will be a lot more coming, and CDPHE has made it really clear that they're going to continue working with us as stakeholders to move things forward. So that's a great plus.
I just really wanted to
Yeah, more clarity. Now I get it.
I want to be in spec.
Yes, of course. Thank you very much.
I just wanted to say,